Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome back to my channel. I'm pumped because we are entering a new year, which means lots of new shoes that are going to be released that I get to try out and report back to you. Today, we are kicking it off with a shoe that released about a month ago. So this is, I think it was December 1st, if I'm correct, from ASICS. So this is the ASICS GlideRide Max 2. I did not try the first iteration, but I am always on the hunt for a solid shoe to be something that I can use for my long runs, because that's kind of still where I'm having a bit of a hard time finding what is the best option for me. I've tried tons at this point. I've gotten a lot of great suggestions from you all, and I've done a lot of research myself too. And I'm still looking for that Goldilocks, magical, fitting, comfortable shoe that's gonna work for me. I may actually revert back to the Super Blast 2, something that I tried it a long time ago. I've spoken of it before, and I feel like that's kind of a good option where you can go long distances, you can do some easier runs, but then you can also pick up the pace. Something that's that sweet middle ground, which I love a multi-purpose shoe, okay? All right, let's get into it. So here I have the ASICS GlideRide Max 2. I obviously picked a neutral color, no one's surprised there. I will say though, I'm not opposed to selecting a little bit of a more out there color. However, I don't typically love ASICS color choices. I just am not super excited about the color options in general for most of ASICS shoes. I feel like they put together colors that don't make sense. Not always, but most of the time. Now, this is an interesting example of that too, because this is like a black and white shoe, which is very neutral, but it's like a faint lavender through here, which I don't know that it was necessary. I don't know, just my opinion there. But let's talk about this shoe and all the things that make this shoe what it is. First and foremost, this shoe is a max cushion shoe. It is good for those long runs and some recovery runs too. It does actually have a hard pressed EVA plate in here. This was a little interesting for me for the type of shoe that it is. I'm almost anticipating maybe it's gonna be sort of similar to the Brooks Hyperion Max 3 in the performance overall and kind of what it's able to do. That also has a plastic plated shoe. So curious to see how that works for this, because typically you don't have many recovery or long run shoes that have plates in them. Now you can use plated shoes for long run shoots, obviously race day and whatnot, but typically from a training perspective, it's just not as common, at least from my experience. So excited to see how that performs in this shoe. It's going to probably have a little bit of stabilization support here. In between that and the rocker, hopefully we're gonna have some good smoother toe offs with a little less effort, which we love. This does have the FF Blast Max foam, so this is going to have some more of that cloud-like cushioning. It does feel pretty firm overall. Now, it's almost like it's a dual layer foam situation going on here, and the bottommost part of this foam feels pretty dense, and then the top feels a little bit more cushioned. So I'm kind of curious and excited to see how those perform together. But I do feel like this is going to be one of those shoes where you're going to get some responsiveness, but then you're going to get some recovery type feeling when you're going through your run. And obviously the goal of a long run shoe is to be able to carry on seamlessly for miles comfortably. They have an engineered woven upper on this shoe, and it does feel very, very flexible and breathable overall. It's pretty thin. Very excited about that. I do feel that that's going to be very conducive to not running on the hot side, and I am not concerned with temperature just from my initial glance. I do feel that this is overall a very well done upper just from my initial feelings. The heel collar here is very, very supportive. There's not a lot of give here, which I kind of would expect for some of those long run style shoes. You're gonna have a little bit more of that support there. Because of how light and flexible this full front upper is, I don't feel that this is going to make me run hot. There's a decent amount of cushioning here, but it's just more so a very stable heel. There's a pull tab here, which something that just helps a little bit with getting shoes on and off. Obviously, a lot of shoes have them, but I feel like a lot of the shoes I've been wearing recently do not. So hopefully it will make my life a little bit easier. The drop on the shoe is a 6mm drop, so chef's kiss for me, especially for a long run shoe, because I feel like all the long run shoes I've been trying lately are in that like 10mm drop range, which is just a little too much for me. I think I could probably get used to one, but for me, I love the 6 to 8 range. It's gonna be just a little bit easier for me to keep my same striking pattern. This does come in at $170 US. The women's size 8 is 8.4 ounces and the men's size 9 is 9.3 ounces. So a tad on the heavier side. I have a US size 7 here, which is my true size. I mean, feeling this doesn't feel that heavy to me. I'm guessing this is probably like 7, 9 or 8-ish if I had to just guess without weighing it. I didn't do my normal weighing of my size 7, but I don't think this is going to be a problem for me. I've got to get comfortable with heavier shoes for some of those long runs just because that's the nature of the game for those style shoes. And I think that this is light enough that I won't have any issues. The tongue of the shoe is really, really thin. I love that. And honestly, I feel like I've tried a few pairs of shoes recently with this tongue style here. It's very thin and malleable. It's nice because it's not going to be too much pressure and too much heat and too much weight. I love when a shoe can scale back on weight by reducing this here. I don't feel that the thicker that tongue is going to really dictate any kind of performance. If anything, for me, too much material there is uncomfortable. So I do appreciate when a shoe just lightens it up a little bit. It just depends sometimes on how you lace it down too, though. If you're really aggressive with your lockdown here, then maybe there's a little bit of that added pressure on the top part of your foot. But in general, if you're having to really batten down the hatches of your laces that much, maybe consider a different shoe style or a different shoe size. They did update the sock liner on the shoe from the previous iteration, but again, can't really speak to that since I didn't own or try the last one. There's a hybrid ASICS grip outsole here. This combines the ASICS grip with, I may say this wrong, but I think it's a Harper Plus, I believe is how it's said. Please correct me if I'm wrong there. These are both really good combination grip materials to help enhance your grip on different types of terrains. And then just some overall enhanced durability here. Now, from initially feeling it, it's not the most deep groove structural for the outsole. However, I have found that doesn't really impact you as much as you would think. But I'm going to err on the side of caution a little bit here and just kind of give you an idea when I get outside of how that's going to feel. All right, everyone, it's time for me to take these out for a run. I'm going to go ahead. The sun is getting a little bit low right now. I kind of pushed this off a little bit later in the day than typical. So I'm going to try for probably 4 miles just based on timing and needing to get this finished before the sun's down. And then the lighting's way worse than it should be. And FYI, I did get a microphone for Christmas, which is so exciting, but I had not had time before this to check and figure out how it works. So this does not have a microphone, but hopefully I'm going to save everyone's ears for future recordings and have better audio quality. So you are welcome. I'm a woman of the people. Just kidding. But I'm excited. I was planning on maybe doing that just to enhance the overall experience for all of you at some point. But my thought was like, let's wait till it's like 500 subscribers and then it feels even more intentional, but I got it as a gift, so I'm pretty pumped. And hopefully by next week, my next review, you'll hear better audio quality. All right, I'll be back in just a little bit and be able to talk to you about this shoe and how it performed and if it is indeed a Thunderstruck shoe. Stay tuned. All right, everyone, I am back from my run and I'm so excited to talk to you about these shoes because I ultimately was very impressed, maybe a little surprised, but impressed nonetheless. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through how it felt, what I did on my run, and where these performed best, as well as talking to you about my final ratings and if these are another Thunderstruck shoe in my book. So to kick it off, I did run mostly in the 8-minute to 8-minute and 45-second pace range. I did do some pickups in the 7s just to see how these performed at faster paces, and all in all, they did fantastic across the board. I felt these were very comfortable when I put these on initially, and not just that, but they're very true to size too. I would say they do run a tiny bit narrow, but in terms of length, no issues there. I did not feel any need to go up a size or down. If you are a little bit on the wider foot side, I would caution you on these because you may run into some issues. I didn't experience any rubbing, but for me, I do have narrow feet, so typically not a concern. Right out of the gate, once I started to run, I was like, oh, okay, ASICS, these can go. Like, these can pick up the pace, and you really don't notice that weight. Now, again, like I said, it's not the heaviest shoe I've tried, but it is on the heavier side from what I prefer the most. That being said, I did not feel like it was weighing me down, holding me back. The foam, the plate, the rocker, all of that put together, that trifecta did a fantastic job at being able to drive me forward and bounce, bounce, bounce. Okay, this is like that. If I could pick a word to describe this shoe, it's bounce. It has a lot of bounce, a lot of oomph. So you can keep on propelling forward. And if you've seen my Mega Blast review, you probably heard that one of the downfalls for me in that shoe was that there was no ability to like slow down from my experience personally. I felt that it was just propelling you forward. And though these can propel you forward pretty seamlessly, they also did a good job at continuing that slower momentum, but having that same effect of the rocker there. And I really enjoyed that. I didn't feel bored in my slower pace range. I felt like I was fulfilled, and I felt that this was not too firm either. I always get a little bit interested in how a plate is going to feel in a shoe that is designated more for some of those recovery runs and whatnot, but I thought this was really nice. It just added a teeny bit more stability there, and I think between that and the foam, it was just a great combination that it didn't feel like this race day shoe, but it also didn't feel very stiff and rigid. It was pretty damn perfect for what it is, and I was very happy with it. Overall, I really felt that this temperature-wise did an awesome job with breathability. I kind of was erring a little bit on the warm side towards the end of my run, and I think I would love to do more research on this because I don't know definitively, and maybe someone does here who can kind of speak to that, but I sometimes feel, depending on the foam composition, that could also contribute to some temperature fluctuations. And in the case of this shoe, I think that was maybe what I was noticing. Nothing that was a make or break. I was not uncomfortable in terms of temperature. The upper was great, and I just feel that maybe that had a little bit of, yeah, you know what? Because if you think of a mattress, I think this is going to be a great comparison here, and I think that this is going to put it all together. But if you think of a mattress, if you get a memory foam mattress, they are notorious for running a little bit on the warmer side, and it's due to some of the foam composition below you, right? So I think shoes can have some of that same effect. So I don't know what it is about this foam potentially that could have been contributing to it just ever so slightly, but something to note. Not at all a deal breaker. I have had many shoes that have been way warmer than this, so this is not something that I would dock for that at all. The grip overall felt great. I wasn't 100% sure what to expect there, but I felt like it was continuing to drive me forward. There wasn't any slippage. I was very happy with that. I think it's time to get into the overall ratings of this. Let's just cut the BS and get to it. Comfort. I'm sure you're not going to be surprised to hear this since that's kind of what I led with in the introduction. I am going to go ahead and give this a 9.7. Now, mind you, I did not do the longest run in the world. Now, that could change things a little bit, but for the sake of this introductory run, I found these to be very comfortable. I was very surprised. Right when I put them on my feet, they fit pretty much like a glove. The foam felt fantastic underneath. It did not have that sinking in sensation. It did such an excellent job at driving me forward, giving me that responsive feel and that bounce that I love. But being able to do that at slower paces and not feel like you're being pushed forward is kind of a hard thing to do, at least from what I have experienced. And I felt that this gave that same feeling whether I was going fast or slow, which was awesome. And I think that that's going to make the slower, longer runs more enjoyable. But all in all, I felt that the upper was fantastic and molded to my foot so well, very breathable, very comfortable, didn't have anything that was pushing or prodding against my foot. Like I said, runs a little on the narrow side, so for somebody who has a wider foot, it could potentially be a little uncomfortable. Just something to be aware of. Price point. $170. I feel like, okay, so obviously this is a Max shoe, but it's not a Max shoe in like the big scheme of things when I think of like a Max shoe. I mean, there's been so many that I've tried. I don't know that I would completely put it in that bucket. I would kind of put it somewhere between an everyday shoe and a Max. That's where I'd put it. Now, because of that, I still feel like it's a very reasonably priced shoe. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 9.4. All of the Max cushion shoes I've tried, I feel like are 200 plus. And again, like I said, it's kind of in that middle ground here, but 170 for an everyday trainer even is kind of spot on for a lot of different brands. Very, very pleasantly surprised with that price point for what I'm getting out of this. When I think of this shoe, I kind of want to compare it to, which I did earlier a little bit, the Hyperion Max 3 by Brooks. and the ASICS Super Blast almost. I feel like this is a combination of the two. I actually almost want to try those two pairs of shoes again, and since this is fresh in my mind, and see how this fares against those, because I thought that those were two solid shoes overall, and I ended up not keeping either just for numerous reasons. I was on my shoe trying journey at the time, so I had to be very intentional about what I ended up keeping. But I really am interested in trying a Super Blast again. This did feel like a junior version of it almost. I feel like this has a lot of the components that Super Blast had, but then with a little bit of that Hyperion touch too, with that pep. If you like either of those shoes, I do think you're going to enjoy this shoe a lot. I think that this upper is what the Hyperion Max 3 needs. That would make that shoe amazing. I would have loved that shoe. I just didn't love the upper. Those are two other solid shoes that you can run long distances in comfortably. In terms of price point, this pair here is cheaper than both of those other pairs, and I do feel like it's very close in performance and comfortability and all of the things compared to those. So if you're looking for something a little bit more affordable that does what those kind of can do, I think this is a good other alternative for you. Performance. Oh my gosh, guys. Okay. I think that this is like a 9.6. I think that these perform very well. I really am curious to go take these out for like a 10-mile run and see how I feel. I felt pretty refreshed afterwards, and for it to be a long run, recovery run shoe, you want it to perform in a way that makes you feel good afterwards. You don't want to be in a ton of pain. You don't want to have muscle fatigue, any of that. And these did exactly what they said they would do. They had that responsiveness. The foam composition there was really good. The rocker really did have that smooth turnover that I had anticipated it would based on what it had said. And it did feel effortless. It did say that in the description that it was going to have more of that effortless turnover. And I feel like sometimes with heavier shoes, it doesn't feel so effortless, and this did. And this did give me that flexibility to have fun at slow and fast paces, which is a win. Quality. 9.7. I don't have really any notes about the quality of this shoe. There's not anything out of the gate that I would change. As I mentioned earlier, there may have been a little bit of a heat issue due to the foam here from me, and also if you are more sensitive, it's just something you're going to notice a little bit quicker maybe than other people, but that's not a quality issue, I don't think, especially because there's so many different types of foam on the market that they're all meant to do different things, and I don't feel that this would need to change just because of that minor heat issue. It just really didn't feel like that big of a deal. I feel like this is a very, very sturdy shoe. ASICS is a pretty solid brand. I feel like this is a shoe that's going to last you quite a bit of time. I have been running in the New Balance Rebel V5 sort of recently, in the last like 8 months or so, give or take, kind of not too long after they came out. And that's a shoe that out of the gate, I was like, wow, this is a fun shoe. This is a very affordable shoe for what it does. And I had a good time, but that was one that started to just die, let's just say, quickly. I felt like the foam didn't maintain its responsiveness, its comfortability. It felt just flat as time went on. And I think that started to happen around really like the 75 to 100 mile mark, which is a little disappointing. And I wasn't totally surprised when I felt that shoe, the foam at first, I could just feel that it felt like it wasn't going to hold up. It's really kind of hard to explain, but this is one where when I feel this just feels very durable and sturdy. This feels like a shoe that's going to take some beating to get it to wear down and feel dull after running in it for quite a few miles. So because of that, I'm excited to see how these pan out for, you know, the next several hundred miles, if not more. I would love to do another like a 100-mile review check in on these, because I feel like this would be a really interesting one to see how it feels after that point. And sometimes they feel even better, which is incredible. So all of that being said, I think we all know where this is gonna go. Is this another Thunderstruck shoe? The answer is yes. I do indeed recommend this shoe. I had a lot of fun in it, and it's hard to get me to have fun in a slower shoe. I feel like the Vomero Premiums were kind of like, that was like the last, but that is like Super Max, okay? That's a Super Max shoe, but that was kind of the last Max shoe that I had a great time in and felt so refreshed afterwards. But this is a lot more of an affordable price point, and you can get a little more versatility here. And the stack height isn't illegal if you wanted to race in these. Don't know that you do. It's not necessarily meant for that. I mean, I'm a firm believer on racing what you want, whatever works for you, feels comfortable for you, and depending on your goals and whatnot, the factors vary so greatly. But for me, this would not be a race day shoe, but it feels like a good partner to my most recent favorite running race shoe, which is the Hoka Rocket X3. It does have some similarities in terms of the feel and fit and overall function of the shoe. So I feel like it's going to be another awesome contribution to my rotation. Well, everyone, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. As I said, next week, fingers crossed, we'll get that mic up and running and have a little bit better sound quality for you. I also sound a teeny bit nasally. I feel like I'm getting a little bit sick, unfortunately. It's that time of the year, travel, holidays, hustle bustle, all of that, and it makes it a little hard to kind of slow down. And I'm hopping on another flight at 5 a.m. tomorrow, so wish me luck. All right, everyone, have a fantastic weekend, and we'll chat soon. Let me know if there are any other shoes you want me to look into and try. Until next time, bye.